joining today's live session on compatibility packs in SAP S/4HANA, the way forward in detail. So this is actually already the second session on this topic. The first overview session took place in September 2023 and can be viewed on demand. So the link leading to this session can be found in the description of this video, as well as shortly also in the chat window. So as experts for today's session, I'm very happy to be joined by Dr. Stefan Berndt, who is the Chief Product Expert for SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition, and Michael Deller, who's the Senior Director for SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud Product Marketing. So you, the participants, have the opportunity to address your questions by using the chat window in YouTube, and we will answer them in the best possible way. So with that, and without any further ado, I would like to hand over to today's presenters. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Sinan, for having us. Thank you for setting the stage. I hope the audio and the video signal are coming through nicely. And with that, let me share my screen and start the slides. Here we go, second webinar. Thank you also to Stefan and Roland for joining me again. We are continuing where we left last time, where we gave you an introduction into compatibility packs. What are they? Why did SAP put them in place? And the goal for today's call is to provide more clarity on the recommended go-to solutions for compatibility packs. We will actually, as a large part of today's webinar, go through the respective, let's say, groups of compatibility packs, meaning the respective compatibility pack IDs. And you will see that we have, first of all, sorted them according to relevance. We have a rough idea about which of those are being used frequently. And second, we've also grouped them a little bit because that technically makes sense if the underlying elements are the same, and you will see that as we go through the slides. Each slide will also answer the question how to become compliant by 1st of January 2026, meaning what do I need to do technically in my system, which release do I need to be on, and what do I need to do licensing-wise. Special bonus for you, we will give you more details about the active customer information about CP usage that SAP will give you very, very soon. And second, also more information about the handling of CP functionalities after their expiry. One of the most frequently asked questions, will SAP do something technically deactivating them? And here also some relatively new information to come. So it does actually make sense to stay on until the end. Here's our agenda. We'll first do a quick recap, picking up from where we left last time. Then we'll go into a deep dive, one word about customer situations. Are there any specific ones when compatibility packs apply or not? Then we will go, as explained, in detail, line by line, more or less, through the part 4 of the compatibility scope metrics, explaining the given details. And then final chapter will be the outlook with information about the technical deactivation of expired CP functionalities, about the early watch extension that we will set live very, very soon, and what you can do if you have a question. And with that, I would actually like to hand over to my colleague Stefan.
Yes, hello. Also, warm welcome from me. We have prepared for you the following slides. I just need to start sharing. So now I hope you see my screen. Okay. Michael, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
it is. Okay, sorry for this. Okay, what are compatibility packs? So compatibility packages we have introduced already in the very beginning of the S/4HANA releases. It provides you temporary use rights for functionality which originally came or was provided in ERP, and which we temporarily provided for you in the S/4HANA environment in order to allow you for a smooth transition. This is part of every contract since then, and this is valid for on-premise and private cloud. And as I said, the major purpose here was to ensure that our customers can move to S/4HANA, even if using this at that time and using this then for this particular time, and to finalize in the end these things that we had not yet completed by that time on our end. And with our release S/4HANA 2023, we are now proud to tell you that we have completed all the remaining items and provide now the solutions, the go-to solutions for these compatibility packages, which will end their use rights end of the year 2025. All of that is documented in our central note, which is listed here. And the attachment in this note give you then also the details, which we're now on the following will explain to you as well. If you are interested to understand where, if, and what compatibility package you actually use, we have certain tools that should help you here. The first thing is the SAP readiness check, which you find on our SAP for Me portal, which is run in your system, collects information, and then evaluates this and shows this to you, the various information which is relevant for a conversion to S4, but also for upgrades within S4. And I've prepared here a short demo to show you how this looks like. So here you see the enter screen of this readiness check with a couple of information. The one which is important here is the tile with the compatibility scope analysis. And if you click here, you would then see for your particular system what we find in the system as relevant in this context. This is sorted by the various lines of application and business areas. And in this list here, you would then be able to directly link to simplification items explaining the details, also notes describing the business impact and what should do. Also clicking here, you would see a lot of detailed information which comes out of our central notes and the attachments there, which is then here also provided to you as a starting point. Alternatively to this check here, which we definitely recommend, particularly if you plan for a conversion or an upgrade project, you could also start a report in your system that you want to analyze. The report is named here /sdf/rc_start_check. And this is the simplification item check, which is used in general by our software update manager as preparation. And here, if you select the target release you're aiming for, you get as well a system analysis. It's the same system analysis we trigger with the readiness check, but here it's then locally evaluated. And if you just click on this to show this to you, you will get such a list here of various items. This includes the compatibility scope, but also other topics that might be found in your system. So in order to filter for compatibility scope, you need to go to category and then filter for the particular category non-strategic. There are various, so with a star or asterisk would be good. And the resulting list is then what would be, let's say, relevant for compatibility scope. And if there's a yellow sign here in the relevance check, then this is something you need to look at and consider. And again, you have here a possibility to click on the relevant notes or the explanations of the simplification item. So let's go back to our presentation. As I said, the central node we offer here gives you in this attachments also detailed information. This is then, of course, not specific to your system, but the overall information. But here in this Excel, which we attach, you will see the various compatibility scope items, which are identified in the first column by an ID. With explanations regarding the status and the alternative solutions and where you find more information. It also provides information about our deliveries in the on-premise version and also in the S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition version. So I think it's back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Stefan. I think that has already made it a little clearer. That was one of the requests which we got after last year's webinar, to be, as said, a little clearer on what do I actually need to do and what kinds of tools does SAP provide to help me find out if I'm concerned and if, let's say, by which compatibility packs I'm concerned. So let's go on. Again, a quick recap. We quite frequently get questions about use rights versus maintenance. And even though these are rather basic concepts, very, very quick recap.
So one thing which we wanted to outline here today is one thing which we also had as questions. So with the compatibility packs are for the S/4HANA software, as we explained, for both the private edition and the on-premise version. And this includes also our releases 1503 and 1605, which were formerly known as Simple Finance, which were initially released as a mixed stack, so an add-on on top of our ERP solution for the finance solution. However, from a commercial point of view, this is also an S/4HANA stack, and therefore all what we tell about compatibility packages applies here as well. And it's also, let's say, in general, regardless which project scenario you use, implementation coming from an existing system with a conversion or implementing new, or if you already be in S4 today, you have this use rights for the compatibility packages, but they will expire for the majority of these items end of 2025 and then need to be replaced. And therefore, it's really relevant, since we are now already near the middle of year 2024, to look at these topics that are relevant for you and start your project as soon as possible if you wish to continue with the replacement functionalities. As said, for the most of the topics which are in our compatibility scope matrix, the expiry date is end of year 25. There are some exceptions which are listed here, which have an extension until 2030. So for these topics, customer service, transportation management, and production planning in the process industries with the respective compatibility scope ideas listed here, you have another 5 years of use rights before, let's say, the end is then also reached for these topics. Now coming to the first function area, which was also already explained in the first session. Therefore, just briefly here, one of the major topics is human capital management product, or HR. This was replaced in the release 2022 with a successor functionality, SAP HCM for SAP S/4HANA. And here the use rights expire for the classic solution. With release 22, you have now the chance to switch to the new solution, which is activated by a business function. And only with this activated business function, you're then actually compliant. a large majority of the functionalities that you know from S/4HANA and from ERP before more or less stays in place. It has been renovated and modernized with S/4HANA capabilities. These functionalities are then available, and you can keep running them once this business function has been activated. You see here also the list of licenses that are required to be entitled with this new functionality in on-premise and also in the private cloud. In the private cloud, we have some exceptions because it's a subscription-based model. Certain functionalities here were not allowed to be used and will also not be available, and which I explain later on a little bit. The go-to solution overall, as I said, you have two options to switch on this business function as of release 22 and use then SAP S/4HANA HCM in SAP S/4HANA, or what is, let's say, for customers more interested in cloud solutions, you run our SuccessFactors solutions then as a replacement. So to recap this a little bit, because there are a couple of questions often, when or what need to be done in order to be compliant with the solution. So in the year 22, as I said, we released this new version. Before this point in time, you're actually using the classic version under compatibility packages in S/4HANA. And when you then upgrade to the release 22, or when you come from ERP and migrate to S/4HANA in release 2022, then you need to activate this business function, and then you are compliant with this functionality. This also means that you need, of course, to see to this license and then make sure that this is activated in time. The transformation to this new solution is rather uncomplicated. So the existing functionalities which have been renewed staying in place more or less. So there's not a need to make a data transformation or major changes to these functionalities. However, as I said, there are a couple of things which are not supported any longer. For these, you will find respective entries in the readiness check or the simplification item check telling you what functionalities are. And there, of course, you need then to see if you find workarounds or other solutions that can help you if you really need capabilities provided with that. There were a couple of more questions which came in, which I'd like to also to highlight now. So first of all, as I said, not everything has been continued and moved over to the new HCM solution. Majorly, these were self-service scenarios, particularly those which were on outdated technology. So there we decided not to offer them, or at least then on a Fiori or particular WebDimpro applications. Time management is one of these things. For a complete list, please refer to the note which is attached here. There you find a list of things also for your information, or as I said, run a readiness check to get this for your particular system. Another question which often is asked, is every alternative in this new solution also available for the private cloud edition? No, it is not. So the list here, SAP e-recruiting, SAP learning solution, and talent management solutions, they are not available with the new HCM for SAP S/4HANA. Here you need to consider SAP SuccessFactors as a replacement. And a final question, which often receives us, we have scenarios outside of HCM using employee data, for instance, in SD, the sales representative. Is it for these scenarios also required to have this license and activated function? No, it's not. For particular info types, there are exceptions. Again, here's a note explaining the details which info types these are, where then only use the so-called mini master in HCM in order to run these things. I see, Micha, you're back.
Thank you very much for taking over, Stefan. This is what happens when you go to the office in order to have a stable connection. Your PC reboots without any warning. So, yeah, you've already done most of my part. So maybe you better keep being the presenter. Just move on with to travel and expense. Again, a repetition similar to HCM from last year's webinar. Similar but not exactly identical situation to HCM. In the meantime, we also have license materials for all private cloud flavors for classic travel and expense management. So you can also use that in private cloud, both in packaged and in tailored option, where it didn't exist right from the start, but this is all covered. And next slide, please. Here again, please be aware of the connection between the release and the compliance. Last topic from my end, warehouse management, a rather complicated topic. In a nutshell, the go-to solution for basic warehousing is the new one, which is technically based on EWM and therefore much more consistent, much better integrated than classic LEWM, which you will as a component continue to see in your S/4HANA system, but which will only exist in the perpetual scope of S/4HANA as stockroom management, which has a slightly reduced scope. There are 6 components. You're seeing them in the 3rd bullet point, which also expire end of 2025. So please be aware of that and make sure that you have replaced these 6 components in your production system by the end of 2025 with EWM, because that is the go-to solution here. Next slide, please. Exactly.
Okay, then I think it's back to me. A project system, also a topic a lot of our customers using. Here it's a little bit similar to the HCM solution we discussed before. We have renewed or modernized a lot of the functionalities which were previously provided here in the ERP context. This modernization started with release S/4HANA 2021 and was completed with the current release 2023. So for these topics, actually you need to upgrade to at least the version where this functionality that you use has been modernized. If you want to be sure, we recommend to go to release 2023, then you get all of that. Again, similar to warehouse management and HCM, there are smaller functionalities which we decided to sunset in this context and which expire end of 2025. You find them again in either the respective central node we have created for that, and then of course in the readiness check where this is provided. That means for this topic, you should now, if you're already on S/4HANA, check which of the functionalities you are using. If you're on release 23, you're more or less done with most of the stuff. If you have older releases, then you need to carefully check what you're using and consider an upgrade in time to be able to continue using these functionalities. Here's again a little bit outlined what I already explained. As I said, if you are on releases 21, 22, then it depends on what you're using. Maybe you are already here compliant with the delivered software. Otherwise, an upgrade need to be considered. And for the functionalities which are no longer provided, which are also often outdated technologies, yeah, there are also workarounds that you can consider, but then this is something you have to build mainly on your own. Let's go on with another topic. A couple of our compatibility package functionalities using frameworks. And for these frameworks, which are listed here, so the logistics information system, LIS, Report Writer, Report Painter, Special Ledger, and also BW, and here particularly BW data extraction. We want to emphasize that these frameworks do not expire for the user rights. So generally, these frameworks stay in place. They are used by a couple of applications for other applications, and you can basically continue using it. Only content in these frameworks which relates to compatibility packages must not be used after the expiry of user rights. For the LIS topic and Special Ledger, we will have detailed slides. For Report Writer, Report Painter, in some particular finance areas, you can create your own reports in order to read data and report on these data, for instance, in profit center accounting. So the data as such is still with you. Reading this data is allowed. However, you need to have your own reports, and the framework here, Report Painter, actually generates report that you define. So this is possible to then define your own libraries and your own reports assessing this information. Of course, new data must not be updated in the respective areas, which I explain in a minute. BW extraction, here we strongly recommend that whatever you need from data in these areas, you extract and load to BW before the end of 25. In BW, you can still then work with this data as you want. However, the respective extraction functionalities and modules belong to compatibility scope and must not be used afterwards. So extract this before end of 25, and then you're fine. As I mentioned already before, in the finance area, there's one particular topic which is in compatibility scope. This is the profit center accounting, the classic profit center accounting based on the tables GPLCA for the actual data and GLPCP for the blend data, and the totals table here, of course. This is using the special ledger framework. For this functionality, the planning data, so the profit center accounting using the planning data will expire end of 25. Here you need to look out for other solutions like our BPC, business process planning and consolidation environment, or other solutions in S4 using this planning data. For the actual profit center accounting, we decided to allow still to use this because a lot of customers are using here this for balance sheet creation and have built on top solutions that can be easily replaced. Actually, since the start of S4, when you implement an S4, the new ACTOC-R table is enriched with profit center information. So this is more or less run in parallel. And only if you have activated online postings anyway, you will have the classic tables also updated. So switching here to the new solution is quite easy. It's just switching off these online postings. And since the data is also posted in the new structures, more or less you have everything in place immediately. Nevertheless, if you use this for this particular purpose, like a balance sheet creation, so closing relevant information or allocations that are built on top, you may only switch at the end of the fiscal year. And to ensure this, we allow the actual postings. But we'd like also to emphasize that the overall functionality is set in a deprecation mode, so there will nothing be developed or updated in future. It's its poor maintenance. We strongly recommend that you consider moving to the new solution as soon as possible to benefit also from more innovations in this area. And this movement is already possible now with any of the S/4HANA releases since 15.11. So it's a good idea to really take the remaining time to plan for this switch and ideally do this already, let's say, before or with the next year's end closing. Consolidation, that's a little bit of a similar situation as before. Consolidation is, of course, used for closing activities. The go-to solution is group reporting. Group reporting is available since release S/4HANA 1809. So for using this new functionality, you need to at least upgrade to release 1809. Or if you're on that, you can use this. To switch to the new solution, it's normally recommended and also required, sometimes from audit, that there is a parallel run phase between old and new to make sure that your balance sheets and your consolidation reporting is consistent. Again, similar to profit and accounting, we decided to have here a kind of transition phase for customers who cannot manage this switch before end of 25. Here you have the possibility to continue using this for another 2 years and until end of year 2027 as part of a group reporting license. So you need to switch to group reporting. You have to license group reporting as the successor solution, but you will have then the chance to have another 2 years for this transition in order to, let's say, make a compliant move to the new solution. So if you use ECCS already in S4, make sure that you do this transition planning right away, not to lose time here for the switch. A special topic also on the finance area is the functionality of group assets and asset accounting. This was originally developed for our oil industry, but over the years, and it's a quite old functionality, also used by other customers in other industries to group assets in accounting. We decided not to provide an alternative here in S/4HANA. So this functionality will phase out with the end of 25. Major reason is that all new innovations that we meanwhile developed and shipped with our new data model in finance is not really well working with this old concept. In order to, let's say, continue with a similar functionality, however, you have the option to use CDS views that we provide on ACTOC to, let's say, achieve a comparable functionality, but it's not, let's say, a one-to-one. Nevertheless, we believe after a couple of customers have already done this, that this is also a good way forward for our customers to work with this type of small functionality. Already before I spoke about the logistics information system. Here I've summarized the topic again. So we have in overall 5 logistics areas in which the LES functionality is part of compatibility packages. There are a few others where this is not the case. So it's not generally that LES is no longer available. As I said before, the framework still exists for some functionalities and also for our own defined functionalities or solutions that you have built. However, this 5 here, you need to look for replacements. We offer here Fiori apps, CDS views, and a couple other things that allow you to replace this functionality and also modernize in a way that also real-time reporting and capabilities are now enabled with this new environment. All of this is, of course, part of our core license. So this is in that sense, nothing that you need to replace. So please consider and carefully check what are you using, and prepare for the switch to the new functionality, which you find in this detailed notes here as information. MRP. Here's also often a misunderstanding. So the classical MRP run is actually still available. It's a particular feature here, the MRP lists, which are part of compatibility package and must not be used after 25. In that case, we also think that this MRP lists, which more or less create a snapshot of your MRP run here to go through them and work with them, is perfectly, let's say, replaced by the new functionality features, which are real time on this working with this data. So in that sense, there's not really a need any longer to work with such snapshots, which are then quickly outdated. Nevertheless, of course, you need to see into the details and see how to make this replacement and activate this new functionality, which is part of our S/4HANA core thing since the very beginning. Graphical planning table. Generally, we have also in the project system area, for instance, which I mentioned before, but now here also in the planning, a Gantt chart technology, which is outdated and which is no longer really compatible with our future solutions, and therefore we decided to phase this out. So this type of Gantt chart representation is replaced by new UI5 based possibilities. And yes, and that's you need to see here also enough if you use this functionality, what this means, and switch to this new UI5 based Gantt chart representations. Another topic in the PLM area, the engineering workbench. That's a particular transaction here, CEWB. This will also expire end of 2025. The go-to solution for this one is the product structure management in SAP S/4HANA. You find here this documentation. There is also in the quality management area a similar transaction, CWBQM, which in the, let's say, underlying foundation, using some of this same elements and functions. And this particular transaction will not expire. This is separate. This is therefore still available. However, the production, the engineering workbench and PLM here, as explained, will expire. Another topic in the PLM area is the Web UI-based engineering record. Here we offer now the change record as a go-to solution. The respective functionality is described here in this documentation. And again, if you use this functionality, see to the required changes and plan for this change. I think this is now the final detailed we have prepared. There is sales and operation planning, a functionality which we offer since years. This will be replaced by our integrated business planning solution, IPP. And here, yes, this requires maybe a more careful planning. Therefore, you should not wait too long if you use these functionalities. There are some minor exceptions which are listed here for particular transactions helping to maintain product groups, which is used also by other applications. So this type of feature here, this product groups, this will stay in place, but the rest of sales and operation planning needs to be replaced by integrated business planning. So I think at that point, Michael, it's back to you.
Thank you, Stefan. We are doing great in time, leaving just enough time for our last topics, which you can see in the agenda, as well as for some Q&A. And with that, let me quickly, or maybe Stefan, we just stay on your end. And if you could just continue with the slides, that would be super. It's probably easier than if I'm resharing again.
Yeah, no problem, of course.
And I'm
So let's go ahead.
Super suspicious of my PC and rather not touch it. Okay, so as said in the beginning, for functionalities, for let's say parts of coding for which no longer use rights exist, of course, SAP is going to keep the simplified S/4HANA stack simple. And therefore, SAP is going to take technical deactivation measures, meaning compatibility scope functionalities which have expired will be made technically unavailable. And SAP's plan is to start with that with release 2025, not earlier, and also not at a later point in time for earlier releases. But the plan is actually with the initial shipment of release 2025 to make expired compatibility pack functionalities technically unavailable. The one thing we are, as you can see in the disclaimer below, this is roadmap information, planned information, which can change at any point in time. But the one thing which we are pretty confident which will come, and you can also already read that in the respective note of our HCM colleagues, is that we will set the H4S4 switch for the new human capital management in S4HANA to always on. Meaning, dear customers, when you upgrade to release 2025 and when you move into the year 2025, please make sure that you have actually replaced the HCM compatibility scope with the perpetual scope HCM functionality in S4HANA. More, let's say, information communication will be given with an appropriate lead time and once the decisions have been taken. Next slide, please. There's something we are really proud of. We can announce that SAP will give you proactive information about compatibility usage. We've been speaking a lot with our colleagues in order to find out on which way we could do this best, and we found a solution in the early watch alert report. This is a service which is given by SAP to all of its maintenance customers. So any customer who has a maintenance agreement with SAP will get this information, and we will add a chapter here, a section which will probably look like this work in progress thingy here, which basically relies on a simplification item check plus some more, and which will point out which productive usage of compatibility pack functionality has been found on your system, so that you can really focus on those that are actually in use and don't need to go through the complete compatibility scope matrix. As you've seen from Stefan's elaborate presentation, it's a very, very broad spectrum, and focusing on those compatibility pack items that affect you, which you are using, is really, really important. Therefore, within the next weeks, this extension of the early watch alert report will go live and help a lot in this case here. Next slide, please. So, and while the slide transition is underway, there is also a path for you to pass on questions to us by opening a case in SAP for me with the given component here, XX-SER-REL, and the prefix compatibility packs, and we will treat it and answer it like any other case here. And just for fun, I asked one of the wonderful Gen AI tools, what a business person opening a case would look like, which is what you would do here. And yeah, well, you know, a colleague of mine likes to say Gen AI or in AI in general lies with confidence, not always convincingly, but here we go. That was our last slide. Thank you for listening so far. And with that, we would actually open for questions.
Actually, there are two questions in the chat which are not yet answered. I will read you the first one. You described the compatibility packs in part 4 of the matrix. What about the compatibility packs in part 1?
Very good question. Thank you for that. So part 4 of the compatibility scope matrix describes the compatibility packs which are covered by the core license. Part 1 is following the same pattern. So for example, in the way forward Excel, you will also find the corresponding recommendations, but part 1 covers compatibility packs, which are basically representing a complete license of their own. So it's probably a different structure, probably not as granular as what Stefan has just explained to you, but it follows the same rules. And is also covered in the same way by our tools.
Yeah, maybe we should add that often in these cases, there is a replacement functionality which requires a new license. And from a technical point of view, there might not be so much, perhaps for a customer point of view, to do. Therefore, it's, yeah, in that sense, from project point of view, that you need to do for the transition, a couple of these cases are easier to handle. Yeah, more license aspect than a technical aspect.
Thanks, Michael and Stefan. So next question here in the chat would be, can I remodel a compatibility pack functionality in the customer namespace? Excellent question for an excellent expert.
Well, that's of course, let's say, a theoretical option to try to remodel standard functionality in the customer namespace. Depending on the case, that is, of course, going to be difficult, right? If you think of highly integrated functionalities, DSD, whatever you can think of, you probably don't want to kind of reprogram that on your own. You should also be, I mean, theoretically, this would resolve the issue because you would not be using the standard objects afterwards. But on the other hand, give it a good thought, think about the complexity. And there are also clear opinions on if copying SAP standard code is allowed or not. Probably not, because SAP has an IP on that and customers who sign a license have a use right. So usually this is probably not the ideal path forward. Also thinking about concepts like the clean core, getting your ERP system back to standard in order to reduce your TCO, to be ready for AI and all that stuff. So it's probably not the path that we would recommend. More questions, Roland?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, there's one last question in the chat. Is the early watch alert report provided to all SAP customers?
It is provided to all SAP customers who have a maintenance contract with SAP, yes, at no extra cost.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We currently do not have any additional questions in the chat. Nevertheless, we have a couple of minutes left. So if there are any additional questions, you, the participants, can still feel free to include them in the chat window. So in the meantime, just a hint from my side, you will have the opportunity to access the slides you've just seen in this session shortly in the description of the YouTube video. So there you will find a link leading to the slides you've just seen. And also in the chat window, you can find a link leading to the overview session from last year on the SAP S/4HANA compatibility packs. So let me have another look into the chat if there are any additional questions. I think we have answered all of them in both the chat and the Q&A session. So with that, a big thank you to our experts, Stefan and Michael, for the comprehensive overview and your guidance with regards to the SAP S/4HANA compatibility packs. And to the participants, many thanks for joining. Hope to see you again in one of our future sessions. So have a great day from my side.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.